Hi, everybody. So, I hope all of you are doing well and your family is safe as well. So, myself, Shivakripa, I have around 5 years of experience. I started my career as a software engineer, and I've been working in with L&T Infotech Mumbai and then Chennai. Out of passion, I got into HR career, completed my PG from Symbiosis university, and then I worked with couple of startups, and now I work with an organization called Pixel Studios, which is located at Chennai. My key areas are employee engagement and change management. So today we're going to see about emotional intelligence. So whatever we're going to see today about emotional intelligence, it's not something like a training program or presentation where I'm going to run through PPT and we forget and we go about. This course I designed based on day-to-day practices or how you can apply this emotional intelligence activities or things in your day-to-day life. So maybe you can have a paper and pen with you. This is going to be an interactive session where we're going to have some case studies, which is inside the PPT presentation as well. So we'll also be having some personal development activities. We can use a paper and pen, and also we'll be using the chat, which is in the Zoom. So let's get started with the session. So today we're going to catch up with 5 elements of emotional intelligence. So whenever we say emotional intelligence, it's a very wide topic. It's like an ocean. But then we are going to catch up with these 5 elements of emotional intelligence, which we are applying in day-to-day life. So number one, it is self-awareness. The second one is self-regulation. Third one is motivation. Fourth is empathy, and fifth is social skills. So this is a short introduction about me. Myself, Shivakripa Rajaram, and I've been called, and I would like to call as a people architect. And I love to instill ideas and thoughts in young minds. And you can find me at Shivakripa Rajaram Ayur in LinkedIn. And currently work as HR with Pixel Studios. Okay, let's get started with the session. What is emotional intelligence according to you? Answers on the chat. Whatever you know about emotional intelligence. Maybe a short answer in the chat. Am I audible to everybody? Am I audible?
I think some are facing some issue with the audio. They are not able to hear.
Okay, okay. But some are able to hear as well, I guess.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, there is one comment in the chat box for the
Yeah.
emotional
Yeah.
intelligence.
I'm just checking.
Yeah.
Okay, recognizing the emotions, and Rachna has mentioned managing emotions for employees at workplace. Yeah. Emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence refers to ability to identify and manage one's own emotion as well as the emotion of others. Yes, something that enables us to sympathize with others in the community. Okay, the capability to control one's emotion. Okay, ability to deal with quick changes and challenges. Yeah, Akhil Haridas, it's like part of an emotional intelligence, we can say, which is like self-regulation, which we'll be looking in. Ability to realistically gauge the mood of the situation and act accordingly. Well said, Elena Elizabeth. Yeah, empathy is associated with EI. Yes, it is. And based on that, we will be calculating the EQ, which we say emotional quotient. Okay, thanks for your answers. So let's get started with the session. So this is the definition per uh, Wikipedia. So emotional intelligence refers to the capability of a person to manage and control his or her emotions and possess the ability to control the emotions of the others as well. So to say shortly, one should be aware or one should be able to manage their emotions and as well as others. So only if you're able to manage your emotions, you can manage the others. So whatever we are going to see, these 5 elements, it's going to be on self. So everything starts within self. Only if we have the awareness, self-awareness, we'll be able to handle the emotion of others. Only if we have the regulation, self-regulation, we'll be able to handle the others. So anything to start with, it has to start with ourselves. Why emotional intelligence is important? Because most of the problems in our life, be it personal or at workplace or with friends, anywhere with your partner, everything is because we don't know how to react to a problem. We react way too much, which is not required at that point. That actually brings in a problem. So how can you it doesn't mean that you need to control the emotions and you don't need to show your emotions to the other person, but the reaction should be assertive such a way everybody is on the same. That's very important, especially when it comes to workplace. And when you want to voice your opinion, it does matter the way you speak, the tone you speak, the more louder you speak, everything calculates. So even most of the organizations, they have behavioral appraisals where they evaluate a person based on their behavior, where you need to maintain this emotional intelligence level properly to ace that kind of appraisal. So let's get started into self-awareness. So self-awareness is basically knowing about what emotions you're feeling at that time, or you're aware how to react at that time, to say very shortly. So let's get into a case study, small case study. So you have a situation here. Maybe I think few of them are MBA students here, or maybe some people who are working. Let's get into the situation. You have a colleague sitting in the next cubicle near you, who all of a sudden, so the person is speaking over the phone. All of a sudden, a person starts yelling on the phone, and they're throwing the phone at the desk and stomping his hand at the desk and walking out of the cubicle, shutting the door loud. Stomping as in he's trying to hit his hand with the desk, hitting his knuckles with the knuckles on the desk like that. That's called stomping. So he's on the phone. All of a sudden, he or she starts shouting on the phone, and he or she is moving out of the person after throwing the phone over the desk. So this is the situation. So questionnaire time, paper and pen time. So what were you seeing and hearing during this situation? And second, what were you thinking at that time? And how did it make you feel? And fourth one, how did you respond? So fifth one, three, personal reflection. What kind of, what would be the impact on you, or what you will be doing at that situation? So we had the case study. So based on the case study, you can actually clock in your reactions. You can write in the paper and pen, and once we are done, we'll take 2 minutes of time. Once we are done, we will just post it in the chat. Let's start. I hope it's clear for everybody. If anybody have any doubt, you can unmute and ask. Based on the case study situation, please clock in your answers. So what were you seeing, or what did you hear during that situation? What were you exactly thinking at that time? How did it make you feel? And how did you respond, or how will you respond? And your three personal reflections. So let's get started. It's 5:42. So let's take time till 5:45, and we'll clock in the answers. Go, chat, answer. Time's up. It's 5:45. So I've got one answer. Oh, sorry, two answers now. So it says Mr. Ratnaguru is telling I could see a person losing him due to a situation that may be due to an official or personal concern. Such an act has made him to lose his own emotion and also have distracted the colleagues and one who was on the call. Exactly, Mr. Ratnaguru. It affects on self and also others when we don't have a proper self-awareness. To understand the situation and help the person by probing as a professional and let him speak out to his extent and help out with whatever has to be done. Okay, thank you. An outburst of pent-up emotion or anger, yeah. And how to console, confront the person. Okay. Okay, any other answers? Any other answers?
I think no, you can proceed to
Okay,
next.
all right. Okay. So, as it was discussed, it also affects one and also it affects others. Let's say, when such situation was going on, everybody would be feeling, embarrassed or, irritated or interrogated, you can say, depends on the person. And it also affects the credibility of the person. Then, people might be, see, we are at a place, we are at a workplace, and people might be like, that person the other day, the so and so person don't have the control over the anger, and he or she was shouting on the phone. So that's the kind of the impact it creates to others. And also by getting angry or showing the outbursts, it's going to affect our health and mental peace as well. So how can you be self-aware and don't react like this at a place or a workplace? That's very important, which we are going to see. I've got an answer. Immediate responding to such a situation might not give immediate solution, so a ventilation time for an individual might help. Yes, true. So what can actually affect self-awareness? So let's see what could have actually happened, or generally how people lose self-awareness. For anything, we have to know what is the root cause. So honesty. So when it comes to honesty, it's very, very important. So as I said, everything starts with self. It's very, very important to accept one. Let's say when I was in school, even when I was doing my engineering, I was very bad at math. So rest of the subjects, I score pretty good marks. But when it compared to the other subjects, or when it comes to math, I was very, very low on scores, probably an average student. So the very important thing is, if you're not good at something, or if you know this is the problem, you must be honest enough and you must be true to acknowledge to yourself. So you must be true enough to acknowledge to yourself, so you know what it is exactly. So I know I'm not good at math, so I put an extra time. Let's say I study the other subjects for 1 hour, I take 2 hours, 2.5 hours to do the math. So it's very important that you acknowledge your true feelings to yourself. The next comes the courage. So fine, you right now acknowledge. So it can be a skill also at the workplace, or maybe any other subject when you're doing your college or something also which you're not good at. Probably your manager calls up and say, this skill of you being a leader, this skill of you is not enough, and you really need to get on it. Then you have to evaluate on yourself, and you have to find whether you're good at it or not. So honesty is more on the self evaluation part. Courage is accepting that you're not good at it. So let's say a person is giving a feedback. Let's say your manager is giving a feedback, or your reporting head is giving a feedback. This feedback is very, very important. Actually, most of the time we would have actually figured out what we wanted to do or where we are lagging, but also additionally this feedback is going to help us, and we should have the courage to accept, yes, I'm not good at it, and I'll work on it. The next one is willingness. So honesty, you have analyzed about yourself and acknowledged about yourself to yourself. And courage is something someone is giving the feedback and you're accepting as that as well. And willingness is something, how willing you are to learn it. So what are the steps you're taking it? Let's say you don't have a proper team communication, you don't have a proper rapport. This is the skill you have to develop. Let's say your reporting manager is saying this. What are you willing to learn this? What are the steps you're taking to learn this? So that's very important. That's willingness. So the next, coming to learning. Okay, so you analyzed about yourself, you got the feedback, and you're ready to learn. So how willing you are to learn, that matters. So this we are going to see in a learning willingness indicator, which is coming in the next slide. This is a very, very useful one. So way back when I started my career, as soon as I got into HR, because of the previous experience I had in my software, already was having some around 2.5 years of experience that time, and I was into team management there itself. So based on that experience, I got into team management as soon as I completed my postgraduate, and I got into an organization. There I had an issue because I was young at that time compared to all other managers. But I was given very crucial role, but I cannot ignore it. So I had to cope up in such a way that I have a better plan. I behave in a better way, like another senior manager who had 10-15 years of experience. So that is the time I actually started practicing this activities on emotional intelligence. So I was in a position where I have to learn new skills. I have to talk to a person who has 20 years experience in branding, and he will be talking about all the technical terms. Or so what I had to do is I had to start reading a lot of books and blogs. So that is where I decided, so every month I'll be reading a book. So when in 2016, I read 14 books in that year. In 2016, I read 14 books in that year. So I wanted to, I was like, okay, at the end of the year, I wanted to learn all these skills that's related to that was related to my current organization, and also that would be useful in the HR strategy, HR perspective. So whenever I start doing a new habit, or whenever I start developing a new skill, I apply this learning willingness indicator. So this will exactly show where are we and where we need to improve. Anything that to improve has to be tracked. Let's say we are going out and working out at gym and we need to lose some weight. So we'll obviously take this thing, right? Before and after weight, or before and after picture. So we would track it, where are we, and what is the level, where are we progressing. So the progress tracking is very important. Similarly, when you start as a habit, or when you start a new learning of a new skill, you can use this learning willingness indicator. It's very, very helpful in the personal life as well. So it talks about three factors: energy, openness, and focus. So if you have these three, you can if you have these three, you can very well learn a skill. So energy, so let's all do this small example or a work. Let's just imagine a situation, or maybe anything or you wanted to do something. Let's say you want to learn a new skill or new habit. uh, just think of it and just start filling this energy, openness, and focus indicator. So if you are always best of, you have a feel good factor, then you can rate it as 10. And if you're low on energy, you can rate it as 1. So 1 is the lowest and 10 is the higher. The next comes the openness. So how open you are, or how excited you are to learn that particular habit or skill, or you're not open enough. That's the first you can rate it from 1 to 10. The third one is focus. So your mind is elsewhere today. That's being minimum is 1, and being maximum is you're very focused and you're ready to learn something. So just it's a small task or an activity we can do to keep it interactive. So just imagine about a situation or a skill or a habit you wanted to learn, and based on that you can map the scores. So to get the answer, you can multiply your energy into energy, openness, and focus score. Let's say my energy level is 5 and openness level is 10 and focus level is 10. Then you can do it as 5 into 10 into 10, and you can put the answers on the chat. Let's take a minute to do this. I'll tell you what's important and how do you analyze it post we get the answers in the chat. Okay. Okay, 192. Five ten. Okay. Okay, 254. Fine. We'll just proceed with the session. Why this learning willingness indicator is important? So if we have scores less than 700, it basically means we don't have the proper learning willingness indicator, or we have to improve. So when I started with the book reading habit of 14 books per year, particularly I need, at least I need to do 10 pages of a book reading wholeheartedly every night, or whenever I get time for the day. So I started mapping it. So initially when I started, my score, the uh, net score of learning willingness indicator was as low as 400 and odd. And when I started tracking it, within 23 days, 23 to 24 days, the score increased to 780. So it was an improvement. I was able to track So then I started analyzing what gives me energy. So, there will be days where you will be high on energy and high on openness and focus. There will be some day where you will be low on energy, but still you wanted to do just because you have taken an oath that you want to. Typical example, one day when we go and work out at gym, you will be on fire, you can run, you one day you'll be feeling tired. It's all normal for everybody. So what can you do to overcome this? So energy level. So I am actually a morning person. I like to wake up early in the morning and do. Some will be night owls where they wake up at night and they do their things. So I prefer getting up in the morning, and I start my day with some simple yoga stretches and some pranayama just on the bed. That will actually make me feel energized all throughout the day. So I stick on to a routine or a practice that makes me keep energetic all over the day. So that's the self analysis which I derived. The next one is openness. Openness as in you if suppose like this is mostly it's dealing with the mindset. So why are you not open today, or what's the problem? So those kind of question you can ask to yourself. You can start mapping what are the days or the situation that actually make you have less openness. So that will also help you to overcome the less openness value. The next comes the focus. This is very very important. Though you have energy, though you have openness, focus is very very important. Now COVID-19 is all over the world, and we are working from home. So initially when I started, I had to do my domestic chores, and I have to come and I have to sit at the time and I have to start doing something. And I'm the only HR for 50 people in my organization. So every day call the team leads and also call the important change makers in the organization. I need to talk with them. So I had to plan up and come. So every time I start, there will be some disturbance, and I was not feeling satisfied at all. So that is where I decided what is not keeping my focus. So what I did, I set up a room here, which I used to have like a study room in my school days or in my college days. So I did a setup. I moved the old table and set it up, everything. And I created an office kind of space, cubicle kind of space, where I kept everything, the pen and few of the decorative items I use at office. I tried to bring that feel. So after that, what happened, it gave me a feel that I'm in office, and it helped me to focus better also. So creating the right environment is the key. Creating the right environment is the key. Let's say you're meditating, and you need to focus on your meditation. Let's say you're sitting in the hall or a drawing room, it's not possible. So creating a right environment is very very important. So this learning willingness indicator has personally helped me a lot to achieve a lot of things, like creating a habit, which we call it as an also on habit stacking. So habit stacking is something, you already have a habit, you add an extra thing with it. So let's say everybody brushes your teeth at the morning. So a good practice is to start having a cup of hot water after you brush. So these kind of things is called habit stacking. So every day night we go to sleep, and when we go to sleep, we always have everybody, most of us has an habit of fiddling with the phone. So I added an habit that I'm not going to use any of the gadgets except for it is required. Maybe I use Kindle to read books only if it is required. So I shut down all my gadgets before 30 minutes I go to bed. So these are called habit stacking. So to add any habits, or to develop any skill, or to habit stack, you can use this learning willingness indicator, which is very very useful, and also it helps us to track the progress of what we are and where we are. The next come the personal development activities, end of self awareness. So what can you do to keep your self awareness on bar or on sync? So you can concentrate on personal development activities. I think first one is emotions diary. This emotions diary all of us in the childhood, or maybe some of us also has an habit. My friend, I know her for 25 years now. So she's been having this diary writing habit where she used to record very important things in her diary. So similarly, when we have no control over our awareness, or no control over any of your emotions, you can actually start identifying. So what kind of emotion you feel, how did you feel when, what is the situation that actually triggered you, how long did it last. So when you start writing those kind of things, maybe you can also maintain a Word document if you're tech savvy now. So you can start putting in those details. So that will actually keep us to aware. Let's say there is an same situation which is going to arise again, then you can say, yeah, I promised myself, or I wrote myself, this kind of situation triggered my anger, so I'm not going to get triggered, and I'm not going to leave words just like that. So there are a lot of people, they come and say, I mean I speak anything out of the anger, I don't realize how the other person would feel. So what do I do at that time? I have an anger management issues, they say. So I tell them, start writing the emotions diary, and start mapping it so that you don't repeat it again. So you actually, your mind will give you an alarm that not to do like this. The next one is being more resourceful. um, from fearful to conscious. Let's say, I was telling you that, I don't like math, or I'm not good at math, you can say either way. So whenever, even when I was appearing for 10th and 12th board exams, I was so nervous. I don't wanted to go to the exam, but of course it's not possible. So I felt very fearful. And instead of feeling fearful, what you can be cautious, that is put in more extra work, and you can make you feel confident that you will crack it. So converting your negative emotions to positive emotions will actually help you to be more resourceful. The next one is furious to challenge. So in the being a HR person in the company, it always happens whenever we complete the appraisal, people come back and say, you have rated this much to that person, we joined together, and this is the achievement, this is less, that is less, the hike is less, this allowances were less. Though we are not though the appraisal scores are not subjected to public, but somehow they come to know. So instead of comparing with others, it's very, and getting angry or furious, it's very important to challenge ourselves, rather than going and seeing other appraisals go on, telling that they have got this much high. We need to challenge ourselves, and we need to analyze where we went down, or where the scores has become low, and which is the skill I have to develop. We can work on those kind of things, and we can challenge ourselves, and we have to come up in a career ladder. So having some negative emotions like that person got this much allowance, that person got this much high, it's going to affect us and also people around us. So what we can do is converting the negative emotions to positive emotions. Going to be more resourceful. You're going to be more resourceful to yourself and also to the team or the surroundings. So the second element we are going to get into is self-regulation, which is also called emotional resilience. So what is self-regulation or emotional resilience is about how well you are, or we are able to manage our own emotions. So we are going to get into a case study. So I'll read a case study for you, and I'll also briefly tell you what the case study is about. So for last 3 months, Mr. Swarup has been working on major conference for one of their key clients. Everyone has put in a lot of work and effort to create an exciting event meet to clients' need. This is a big deal financially, and it's high profile. Swarup's team had some innovative ideas and all has been fantastic. Swarup takes call from client, and client explained that he have just found out that the venue for conference has been booked on wrong dates, and there is no availability for the date required. This has huge ramification in terms of invited audience and finance implications. Should they have to rearrange the conference? Swarup is directly responsible for this. Swarup's reaction, he felt devastated, confused, helpless, shocked, and scared. These feelings well up inside, and he felt physically sick. His breathing becomes irregular and he's unable to function. He realized he had a major mistake. He has done a major mistake and worried about his credibility now. Client demanded how such mistake has taken place, but he can hardly speak and react. He finishes the call with the client and drove back home devastated and doesn't reappear next day. Swarup's behavior, the team learn about the mistake from the client who is trying desperately to get some answers. Then they try to call Swarup, but he doesn't respond. Client is furious. Team is devastated and leaderless. If you are Swarup, what will you do? So to tell briefly, Mr. Swarup is a manager and he's handling a conference. He and his team is planning for a major conference with one of the key client. So they had a lot of innovative ideas and they have implemented everything, and everything is over, and all of a sudden they get a call from the client. Client calls up Swarup and says, Swarup and his team has booked the conference on the wrong date, and there is no availability on the scheduled date as well. So Swarup very well know this has involved a lot of important people who are audiences, and also it has a lot of finance implication as a lot of money has been spent. Swarup knows he is responsible for this. So coming to Swarup's reaction, he is very shocked and he don't know what to answer. Client is asking for the why the mistake has happened. They are demanding an answer, but Swarup is not able to answer. So he's going back home and he's completely, feeling numb and sick and all that. And he's going back home. And next day, Swarup is not coming to office. He's not responding to anybody's phone calls, both client and teams, and client has become very furious, and team doesn't know what to do. In fact, team heard the news only from the client, so they don't know what to do. So team doesn't have a leader now. So if you were Swarup, what will you do is the answer. So let's keep this situation and we'll map the two things. One is, if you were Swarup, what you will be doing, and how will you respond for these questions, that is emotional feelings, physiological signals, intuitive feelings, and your personal reflection when you are in pressure. So the first will go with, if you were Swarup, what will you do? Okay, I've got the answer. First of all, I would take a deep breath, apologize to the client, and take responsibility. If possible, we can schedule an online meet for the scheduled dates. Okay, great answer, Parul, ma'am. Okay, so if you were Swarup, what will you do? Okay, calms himself down, apologizes profusely to the client, make calls, arranges for a venue in short notice by pulling some strings, and arranges for transportation from the old venue to the new one. Okay, great. Yeah, make sure that this kind of incident never happens again. Okay, any more answers? I've received only 2. Okay, so let's go back to the next. So it's somewhat similar. So when you are dealing with pressure, what emotional feelings you have, and what kind of physiological signals like pains and ache and all. So, and intuitive feeling and your three personal reflection. So I think most of the answers has been covered in the Swaroop's case study answers itself. So when we have pressure, generally we know we'll be feeling tense. That's a common emotional feeling. So when it comes to physiological signals, let's say like Swaroop, if I have done any mistake, obviously my breathing pattern will become bad and will feel nervous. So intuitive feelings would be always a negative feeling when you're dealing with the pressure. Oh, I've done wrong. Are they going to sack me? Who will tell me what? So those kind of feelings will pop up. And the personal reflection is, try to calm down myself, or try to accept the mistake if I were in Swaroop's position. Okay, so the thing is, if we were in Swaroop position, or anything, when we deal with the pressure and when we deal with the mistake, life is full of ups and downs. Everybody would be facing some kind of problem every day in life, or it goes on. It's part and parcel of life. So the only key to keep your emotional resilience, or regulate yourself, is to face a situation. Facing and acing the situation is very important. What happened has happened, and what next? What if is okay, fine. That's basically a plan you have to do if one plan is failing. But what next should be there? You cannot keep and revolve around the same thing. So the key is facing the situation. So you don't have an option. This is what you have to do. You have to face it. So most of the people lag there, and they get into stress and other things. So facing the situation is going to give us a solution. So what are the things that can affect self-regulation? Outer zone, that is when you're not in the comfort zone of yours, and when you're responsible for major mistakes, something like Mr. Swaroop's, and intense pressure for long time. So some people I know, they work for 13 hours, 14 hours, and for a very long time, handling one project for 14 hours, and no appraisals also. Those kind of things has also revolted back. I've seen such experiences in one-on-one counseling in my previous organization as well. So those kind of things can also affect self-regulations. So coming to personal development activity, as uh, Parul and Malavika wrote, need to control the breathing pattern. That's very important. So, whenever we have an issue, we can always, or, when you're not able to keep your emotions intact, it's very, very important to control your breathing, because it says when you are under pressure, or when you get scared, or when you generate negative emotions, the blood circulation in your body doesn't go properly. So let's say a tension, or you get scared or worried, the blood circulation in the body doesn't go properly. So you can actually do the deep breathe or inhale exhale, which will actually help you to give the blood circulation properly to your brain and the other parts. So then you will be in the absorption mode, or a thinking mode, where you will be able to think what to do next. Next, control your feelings. Everybody in life would have come up with a situation where you will be right, but you cannot back talk to the person, maybe in your personal life or in your professional life. There is a famous saying that says, if you are going to argue with the colleague, count from 1 to 10 and then argue. If you're going to argue with your line manager or reporting manager, count from 1 to 20, and then still, if you feel like arguing, then argue. So that's counting will actually help you to put in sync, because when someone person speak and you immediately talk back, that's what is called reaction. we are reacting, and that becomes an issue. More than the issue, the reaction becomes an issue. So how assertively you can deal with. So if you don't have the proper emotional resilience or your regulation to control the self, that's going to end up in a problem. So I have also dealt with such cases, the problem between the team member and manager. So because of this, work productivity and the team productivity has also got affected. So it's always not about the self or the two persons concern, it's about the environment or the surroundings as well. So it's very important to control your feelings. Next is what if. So there should be always plan B. So it doesn't mean we have 26 alphabets and we should have 26 plans. So we can always have a one backup plan when we start doing something. Let's say if this is not working, the entrepreneurs, that's how they work, right? So, okay, if this is not working out, we'll try out this. So those kind of backup plan will actually help us to, keep the things in ease. So also we'll feel confident and do things better. So moving on to next element, third element, motivation. I'm not going to speak or discuss much about motivation. So everybody talks about motivation and motivational speakers are there, but I'm just going to run through some important points in motivation. So motivation is about managing your energy and emotional state to achieve what you set out to do. So what can affect motivation? So what is the main thing? So you have a goal, you work or you make yourself motivated to achieve that goal or a purpose. So in between you will have obstacles that can be human obstacles, or that can be self-created, or it can be an environmental obstacle, anything. But to start with and to end with, you should have the energy and you should have the drive. Most of the people now, very easy example, weight loss in gym. Okay, so everybody starts with, but nobody, they pay so many rupees, they pay 12,000, 13,000 per year plan, but they never come. So what happened in between? They lost their energy, or they might have got obstacles, but they have not overcome it. So the weight loss or the fitness goal they have not achieved. So similarly, we might have a lot of examples in our life where we start planning for a goal, or you wanted to achieve a goal, but we don't drive it. So what are the things you can do? As I said, you can listen to TEDx talk to keep you motivated. Let's say, I want to become a HR leader in other 5 years, let's say. So what are all the things I need to do to become a HR leader and get recognized nationally or internationally? I have to start planning things. I have to focus and I have to start doing things. Let's say I've decided in my plan I'm going to watch a TEDx talk every day. Okay, I can watch a TEDx talk that will keep me motivated. That's all. But to watch the TEDx talk, I should keep myself motivated. No, I should have the energy, or I should have the drive to go and switch it on and watch it. So that's very important. So anybody can motivate you, but the self motivation is something that will always come together, or it is followed. I mean, that's the reality. And you have to keep yourself motivated, and self motivation is the key. So to achieve anything, we should have the self drive. These are the things that can actually affect motivation. So how can you overcome it? Harnessing your energy. So harnessing energy is basically creating and managing the energy. So I'm so for every daughters, they are close to fathers, and I'm also the same. So whenever I'm low, my father works for central government. So he keeps roaming here and there. And whenever I'm low, maybe personally or career wise, I call him up and I speak to him. I feel better. I feel he's my energy creator and he's my energy giver. He's my everything. So, I go and I talk to my papa, like, I'm not feeling okay. He talks, he doesn't talk much. uh, he's kind of an introvert. He doesn't speak much and also a busy person as well, but talking to him make me feel better. So similarly, we might have something or a person who can actually help us to give the lost energy or help us to maintain the energy. It can be some activity also. No, I'm a classical dancer, but then when I got into my career and studies, I was not able to continue it. So what I do is I go play some, uh, those jatis or sound, and I dance for 15 minutes, half an hour. I'll feel better also sometimes. So these are the things I do to keep myself, keep my energy level better or keep me on focus. So, those days when we study for continuously for 3 4 hours, we take a break in between for half an hour or something. That time we like to eat or listen to music. So it can be anything that can actually re-bring or revamp your energy, so we can work on those kind of activities. The next one is visualizing your goal. So I've been born, brought up in Chennai. So there is a person called Ve Iranbe. He's one of a very famous IPS officer. There was a book called Tannambikai Tonic. It's in Tamil, which means, tonic to keep yourself motivated, self motivation. So in that, he said, always visualize your goal. You wanted to become an IPS officer. Whenever go to sleep or whenever you're free, you always focus, like, you're going to become an IPS officer. You're going to have a car with those beep sound and all, and you're going to come and get down in the car and you see the badge that you're IPS. So start imagining those kind of goal. One day you will achieve it. So this was when I was in third standard or something, a long time back. But this word of the book has impacted me a lot. So whenever I wanted to achieve something, or whenever I say this is my goal, I start visualizing it. For example, immediately after I read that book, I wanted to try out. So I had some math exam coming in. So that was a time, I think they started with this graph and all, I guess. So I had the graph exams, and I didn't know geometry, that coordinating geometry or something. I didn't like math at all, but then this was very new to me and I need to start it. So I imagined, okay, I'm going to do my exam well and I'm going to get 90, and everybody 90 plus, and everybody's going to appreciate me at my house. So because my brother is so good at math, he keeps mocking me that no, I'm not getting math properly. So I'm going to go and tell my brother, see, I have got 90 plus, like that. So I started visualizing and exactly after a month or something, I had my that portions unit test, and I got some 96 or something. Then I understood our mind is so powerful, and we need to visualize the goal. So automatically, our mind, body and soul, it will start working on the goal which we wanted to. By visualizing, the power of one's subconscious mind comes into play. Visualizing truly has its power. Yes, Shweta, you exactly, that's a point I'm trying to make. Thanks for giving me these beautiful words in between the session. Thanks, Shweta. Exactly as Shweta said, visualizing has its own power. So we can actually help us whenever we feel down. We can actually take up this, and we can visualize our goal. The next, eliminating distracting thoughts. We are all human. We'll all have distracting thoughts. Again, we need to figure it out. For individual, it varies. We need to figure it out. What can actually eliminate our distracting thoughts? It's okay to have distracting thoughts. So it will help us to put back on the track. But distracting thoughts all the time, 24/7, it is going to be a big obstacle to our goal, right? So we'll move on to the next slide. The fourth element, this is empathy. Let's start. So empathy is capacity to place oneself in another's position. So many think empathy is sympathy. No. Basically, how well you're able to listen and analyze others. is actually empathy. So the key for empathy is communication, communication, communication. So if a person is telling that the so and so is empathetic, it means a person has a very good listening skills. So empathy is all about having a good listening skills, which is a part of a communication skill. So use empathy to clarify your understanding of meaning behind words. Ask great questions to get the heart of matter. So coming to the second point, especially this using the empathy to clarify your understanding of meaning behind words. This is something we use in our workplace, or even when we are studying. Whenever a client gives us a mail, so whatever they mail and whatever we reply, there will be a communication gap. So we might have clients call also sometimes, or maybe a doubt clearance sessions at college. In those times, it's people will confirm once or twice, like, this is what you wanted to do, are you sure, shall I lock it, am I right, please get me if you're wrong. So you can use all these kind of sentence, and you can actually clarify what exactly people are telling. This has happened because when I started my career as a software engineer, I worked for one of a US clients. So though we speak English, their English is very different, and the way they communicate, they speak, being a fresher, it was not at all clear. So I understood something and I started doing it. Then my team leader called me up and said, whenever you have a doubt and whenever you feel that you're not sure, always confirm it. So this empathy is very, very important. It's again, it's not about sympathizing others. It's actually how good your listening skills are. So that's, you can use this listening skills or empathy to clarify anything or any meaning in a for a better communication and a rapport. So what can affect empathy? Anger and distress. Why anger and distress? Because some, when you're in a leadership position, many people from cross-functional teams would come and approach you, especially if you're an approachable manager. So many would be coming and approaching you. So let's say you are in a work tension, or you're not in the absorption mode, or you're not in the listening mode, you will not be able to take up the suggestions. Even in the personal life, if there is a friend, there is a problem between any of your family member, or your mother, father, brother, or your partner, or anybody, and if you're in anger and if you're in distress, you will not be ready to listen to others view. You cannot put yourself in others point of view. So that can actually affect empathy. So what can you do to increase empathy? So there are five types of rapport which you can establish through communication. First one is ritual and cliché. This is called as very low risk, very low trust, and very low payoff. For example, you can see, let's say we are at a doctor's place. So you've taken someone with you, or you've gone to doctor place or a checkup, and you have a long queue, and you have the token with you. So you can it's been a long time and you're waiting, and you wanted to know when it's your turn. So probably a rapport established with a fellow patient, or co-patient, about when did you come, what's your token number. All these kind of things come under the ritual and cliché. That is, you talk only because you need to know something, or so that's considered to be of very low risk, very low trust, and very low payoff. As in, it doesn't have any risk factor, and the person who's known to you is not a person whom you're talking is not so much known to you, etc. So next comes the facts. So the facts involves low risk, low trust, and low payoff. So I think everybody has rights to share the facts. So what is the difference between opinion and facts? Opinion is something you have, and facts is something that's actually right. Let's say now we have this coronavirus. So they say wearing a mask will help you to prevent getting corona. That's actually wrong. It helps you to spread to others. That's a fact. So this is the difference between the opinion and fact. So if you want to be factual, you want to share some facts, again you will be sharing, but that factual conversation will be of low risk and low trust. The next one is ideas and opinions. This has medium risk, medium trust, and medium payoff. For example, you have a fellow colleague, or you have a manager whom you have to give an rapport with, or maybe a client who's not very close to you. Where you can say, this is this I think since all of us are staying home, we don't have much of pollution, and it's raining properly on time. Don't you think we were spoiling the environment? So this is your idea, and also you're giving your opinion, and you're trying to build the conversation to them. So this will also help to build a rapport. The next one is feelings. So feelings, basically, I've been doing this emotional intelligence session. I think this is my fourth session. So previously, one person, he was telling sympathy. He was talking about sympathy. So feelings is more related to the sympathy. We saw the first case study where person was angry, stomping the desk, and getting out of the room. And one of the person has also replied that giving a solution immediately will not help. Yes, but later you can go to the person, and you can talk about how they felt, and you can probably give a solution to their problem also, and can also tell how awkward it was at that environment. So to build a feeling, to build a feeling related rapport, maybe it can be to a client as well, where you're bringing in an emotion connect. In this world, everything have changed except for the emotions. So the feeling is one of an emotion where we can use it as a rapport in a positive way to establish a relationship with anybody, especially people who are on the clientele end. The next comes the connection. So connection is basically very high risk, very high trust, and very high payoff. These kind of it generally, when Diwali or any occasion comes, Christmas, we go and connect with our clients, a very close one. We give a specialty dish like chocolates, cakes, sweets, etc. So even for the clients, when it's a new year, they give us a diary or some brochure kind of thing where the calendar is printed. So these are all the things that actually establish connections. So similarly, we might have some rapport or communication, voice communication, which we can have to establish connection. So let's say you want to establish connection with someone who's very difficult at you at workplace, or difficult at you at the place you are. You can analyze where the category falls, this establishing rapport through communication category falls in, and you can try applying these things to them as well. So that's it about empathy. The next one, the fifth element of social skills, influencing skills. Nowadays, there are a lot of influencers in Facebook, Instagram, and even in LinkedIn. You have LinkedIn influencers, entrepreneurs, successful people, subject matter experts. So basically, what influencing is about, handling other people's emotions effectively. um, so how can you influence people? There are two kinds of influence. One is positive and negative influence. So let's have a small task, where I have mapped 6 traits on positive influence side, and 6 traits on the negative influence side. So myself, I always, let's take the positive influence. So I'm a person, Shiva Kripa is a person who always address people by their name. I strongly believe addressing people by their name is, very good thing, and it makes get good or get along with the people. So I always address by the name. So I'm a person who address by the name, so I'm going to give the score 1. So now on the another end, say if I'm a person who's not a person who's not using their name, let's keep it that way, then I'll be giving 1 on my negative influence side. So I am a person who use appropriate humor, then I'll be giving 1. So if you are a person who uses trait, not occasionally, but often, always, then you can actually, score you against 1. If you're not using it, it's 0. So let's see what is a positive and negative influence score. And we can put this in the chat once you calculate it. Let's get, okay. It's actually 5,2 for me as well, Malavika. So rest of the people, you can post your scores. Okay. Thanks, Joel. Okay. Thank you, Febin. Few more answers. Okay. Let's wait for a few more answers. 5 and 2. Okay. Okay, let people post the answers. Meanwhile, we'll go into the next part. So what can actually affect the ability to influence? So when we are not attuned to feelings of others, when we are not ready to or accept the feelings of others, so we call this kind of leadership as, dictator leadership, or even characteristic leadership. So the person always want to listen to them. They not bother about the team's opinion. So yeah, so those kind of managers are not influential managers, haven't built rapport. So yeah, when you're not in the listening mode, or when you're not ready to get the opinions of others, then there won't be a rapport as well. And obviously it means that the person is not flexible. So when you are not into all these 3 things, then it's going to affect the influence or your influence skills. So nowadays, organization, they have come up with separate skill set or competency called influencing skills. I know an organization which hired my senior because of the brand value he had in the LinkedIn. So the general hike is only 30%, and I think for last 1 year we had a very bad market, and most of the companies were not offering that 30% also. But he's one of a very influential person in SAP technology. So they hired him for 50% hike, and they gave the reason you're influential in the LinkedIn, other social networks. So we are giving you a 20% hike, which will help us to, instead of we spending for a brand value, you will be promoting our brand. So that's called influencing skill, and many companies and skills going on after 2020. Many companies will look on for influencing skills. So I know that's why building brand is also very important, is what people are telling right now. So coming to personal development activities, always connect with people and have a feeling based conversation. Even now being a HR, sometimes I don't have much of work, because it's mostly office mate, or when I'm with the employees, it's more effective. But then I make sure I just call up people randomly once in a week, and I just inquire how they are. So what happens, that is actually helping me to keep the track how they are and how demotivated or motivated they are, what is their expectation, etc. So feeling based conversation is very important. So gaining insight in others people position. For example, without the feedback, let's take an example of a communication channel. So the sender, receiver, and only if the receiver give the feedback, we know whether the message has gone properly. Similarly, only if we get the feedback, we will know whether we are doing the right thing. For example, a company without customer insight cannot achieve a high customer satisfaction index, right? So same thing. So gaining insight on other people position is very important. The next is pacing and leading others. So main thing of influencing skill is pacing and leading others. So when they're able to connect with people, then I think we can automatically influence them. So with this, we've come to end of the session. So if you have any queries, yeah, we can go ahead and ask.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Alina.
Ma'am, I have a question. That is, you have said that everything have changed except for the emotions, right? But
Yes.
do you think that artificial intelligence can actually bring a lot of changes in the emotional intelligence of human beings?
Yes, definitely. Recently, I came across a video. I think in one of the US countries or UK countries, I don't know exactly. People are getting into depression, so they are having a place called an hug place where people can go and hug the people. If you want a people of same sex, you can take them, and if you want a people of another sex, they can use, because people, uh, care and share is one of our basic emotion. So with all the technologies developing, people are losing the care and affection. So the recently they have introduced hug center or a hug room where people can hug and do things. So I feel with the increase of technology, we somewhere losing the emotions also. For example, the webinar classes, however I'm going to have case studies, however I'm going to have some interactive session, it doesn't come like what we have in person to person, right? So yeah, definitely the artificial intelligence do have an impact. The robots or the computer process system cannot become a human, right? So that's my opinion, Alina.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Hello, Shiva Kripa. Thanks for the wonderful session.
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
invited. My question is, see, when we talk about emotional intelligence,
Okay.
so it's difficult for being an HR professional to convince, though I'm not from industry, but that's the feedback that I've got, to convince the top management because they don't see a direct return on investment, because everything boils down to profit and the productivity and all. So which probably as HR professional, which is generally termed as technologically challenged, we are not able to put forth our case. So how like what would you suggest? Like suppose if we're talking about incorporating emotional intelligence while recruiting people, or say dealing with conflicts, so what would be your strategy to convince the top management? Any tips that you would?
Yeah. So mostly top management, if you see, they'll be into business and business. It's actually, there is a famous quote which says, managers don't leave employees leave the organization. So there is a famous quote. So only if you have a happy employees, you can bring a happy product. So I keep that as a tagline and generally use this, and based on the situation, I use this quote to generally convince. Yes, as a HR professional, very right, ma'am. As a HR professional, they say, why to spend this much? This is not going to give ROI. This is not going to contribute in the business. But employees are the one who, who's going to build the products. So whenever there comes a conflict about a particular employee, I always have a SWOT of my employees. Every 3 months once or 4 months once, I try to take a SWOT and I keep it in my personal deck. When any conflict arises to the particular person, and if the person is really worthy of it, I actually go and convince the team or the top management with the help of the SWOT, and I also code the things according to the situation. So that's what I've been doing for now, and it's been 70 to 80% successful till now.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope I answered
For
your
that.
question.
Yeah, definitely, sure.
Yeah, thank you.